There you go.
Okay. I'm not touching anything.
Perfect. We got it work. So, Maureen, how are you today?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing good as well. Thank you so much. Also, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. It is so cool and awesome to have someone as talented with such an amazing career as you here on the show. So that's super cool. So before we start, I have to give you an epic, proper welcome. So if you have seen some of my episodes before, you know exactly what I'm about to do. If not, let me show you. There you go. Epic, right?
I do not get applause in my daily life, so I will take it.
Okay, sounds fair enough. Now, starting with your acting career, with the whole interview here, tell me how your voice acting career started.
Well, I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years now.
Wow.
So really not that long, but since the late 90s. So I started acting in 1998 and did that. I was a theater actor for a very long time. Ended up going to college for theater. I got my degree. And then I was working professionally on stage and moved out to LA for different reasons. And when I got out here, I wasn't acting anymore. I wasn't really pursuing any acting. I was doing other work, but I really missed it. And so a friend of mine who was a voice actor was saying, why don't you try doing this? I think you'd be good at it. And it had never really occurred to me before. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't move out to LA because I wanted to be a voice actor. Like, that is not how any of that happened. But yeah, so he encouraged me to take some classes and just see if I liked it. And so I did. And I trained for about 2 years, specifically for voice acting, because even though I had been a professional actor for years prior to ever even doing this, it is a different skill set.
Totally.
It's a different skill set. And so you really need to know what you're doing specifically in voice acting. Yes, a lot of other acting experience will certainly be hugely beneficial to you, but you need to know what you're doing specifically within this medium, because it's a very specific skill set, and especially if you're dubbing, because dubbing is its own whole thing. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done as an actor is dubbing, and I've done everything at this point. So yeah, dubbing's one of the hardest things I've ever done as an actor. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started. It was sort of, I wouldn't say I fell into it, but it wasn't something that had been on my radar. And it was really, like, I don't know if I would have even ended up doing this if my friend who was already doing it, didn't tell me, hey, you should try this too. I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would even be doing this had all those things not happened. But yeah, so I'm about 5-6 years in at this point, and it's been very interesting.
Yeah, and such an amazing, really cool, badass career, by the way.
It can be.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So in 2012, you were in Fantasy Star Online 2. Tell me, was that like your first voiceover project for a video game?
So here's the thing about that game, and there's so much confusion on IMDb about like the timelines of stuff, because that game came out in 2012 in Japan, but it didn't get dubbed until like 2 years ago. So I was on that project like 2 years ago. So no, and that was not my first video game. But really confusing with projects where the project came out, you know, in like 2007 in the country of origin, and then not get dubbed for sometimes years later. And so, but on IMDb, it'll say the year it came out in the original country, not the year it was dubbed. So I think there's like confusion about that. But so, well, did you want to ask about the game, or just if that was my first game?
Well, if that was not your first game, so.
It was not. My first video game was Fallen Legion, Rise to... Yeah, my first video game was Fallen Legion. And that would have been in 2017, 2018, maybe?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what were some of the challenges that you had when you were recently starting with your voice acting career?
You know, I think it's different for everybody. My situation was a little bit different than a lot of people when they approach the industry because I was already a professional actor. So a lot of the challenges that other people face getting their acting skills up to a professionally competitive level, that's their challenge. That wasn't really my challenge because I was kind of already there.
Yeah.
So for me, the challenge was more learning all the technical aspects of the job and just learning how the industry as a whole works, because it's a big machine. And in order to be able to navigate your way through the machine that is this industry, you really have to know the ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
So it's learning how the industry works, learning the technical aspects of the job. I started dubbing pretty soon after I got started as a voice actor, and so also learning how to dub, because it's not something you just walk in off the street into a booth and start dubbing. Like,
yeah, totally.
It's a skill. Like, it's something you cultivate and practice. And so I'd say those were more of the challenges for me getting started. But also just like networking and getting your foot in the door, because that's, you know, you can be professionally competitive and not work.
Yeah.
So it's figuring out like self-promotion and networking, and it's a lot of stuff. Like, it is not just acting. Acting is like the smaller part of the job, actually. All the other stuff you have to do to get those jobs takes up more of your time sometimes than the acting does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting. Yeah, so I'd say those were my challenges, just building confidence. Because I felt fairly confident as a stage actor, but getting into voiceover, I was still not really sure like where I fit in within the industry, and I'm still figuring that out now. But yeah, I'd say those were my biggest challenges at the very beginning.
Okay. Wow. Now you did the English version voice for Rupan Santei versus Meitantei Conan, the movie. Tell me about your character, but also how the dubbing process worked.
Are you talking Detective Conan versus Lupin? Yes. So in the whole like Case Closed franchise, which is the Detective Conan franchise.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that franchise, I play an FBI agent named Jodie Starling, which is one of my favorite character names, because Jodie Starling, which is very obviously Jodie Foster connection with her character in Silence of the Lambs, which I love putting those two names together. That I've always thought that was cool. But yeah, Jodie's an FBI agent. She occasionally pops up in Japan when stuff's going down to help out, like if for some reason the FBI is involved. Yeah, she's just like a tough, cool FBI lady. I've played her in maybe 4 or 5 of the movies now, I think, but I don't play her in the TV series. That's not me. I'm just in the most recent movies that have been dubbed. But yeah, no, she's cool. She hasn't had a ton to do in a lot of those movies, so it's not a character that I've spent a ton of time recording. But yeah, Jodie's cool. I hope at some point, if we dub some of those, I'll get to play her in the show, because I know she does a lot of stuff in the show.
That's so amazing. And then in 2014, you were in Hunter x Hunter, and in 2015, Black Desert Online. Tell me also about your characters in those projects.
So in Hunter x Hunter, I play a couple different characters in that show, but the main character I play is Amane. She is, if anybody watches Hunter x Hunter, you're going to know what I'm talking about. She comes in at the very final arc of the entire series of the show, and she is one of the Goldite family's butlers, and she is part of the group that goes off with Killua at the very, very end and does some pretty cool stuff with them at the very end. And if people haven't seen it, I mean, the show's been out forever, so I'm not like spoiling anything, but yeah. Then at the very, very, very end of the whole series, and I was really excited to manage to get myself on the show before it ended. So because like everybody I know was in the show, because it had been going for so long before I came on the scene. And it's really cool to play. So Amane, my character in that show, she kind of has like a partner named Canary.
Okay.
is played by Mela Lee, who is a friend of mine in real life. So it's always cool when you're playing characters where your friend is playing the other character. Like, that's always so much fun.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. Wow, that is amazing too. And how this process?
Just Desert.
Yeah.
So Black Desert Online, I play like 30 plus characters in that game, and I don't remember any except one. I play one character, Quinella. Quinella, her name was that. She's like a cool pirate lady. She has a British accent, so if you play that game and you come across her, you might not recognize it's me because she has a British accent. But that's all I remember from that game.
That's so amazing. That is so cool. And also the fact that, I mean, doing like voiceover, that you get the chance to play like so many different type of like pirates or FBI agents, or you know, like like stuff like you wouldn't regular do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the really appealing things about voice acting as a medium, as opposed to working on stage or working on camera, is that you're not limited by your appearance. It doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you can get there for that character vocally, psychologically, and understand them, because you have to understand your character. You can't play any character successfully unless you understand like how they. So if you can get there psychologically, vocally, and you're professionally competitive at it, you can play anything.
There you go. Yeah.
Which is very cool. You know, the majority of my characters are teenagers, and I'm old enough to have teenage children. So I would never be playing a 15-year-old girl on camera or on stage. Like that would never happen now. But playing 15-year-olds every week. So it's interesting. And also being able to play your character at all different stages of their life. Because if that's part of the show where you see like your character's backstory or their origin story, and you know, them as a kid, them as a teenager, them as an old person, like whatever, it's really cool to, you know, sometimes if you're good enough at it, they'll let you do all of your character at their various ages that they're depicted. That's really cool too. That's a fun challenge.
That is amazing. Now tell me how the process works for doing voiceover for a video game. So do they like usually tell you how your character looks, or depending on the project, meaning that sometimes they will tell you that you will play somebody else? Like, how does the process work usually?
So it depends.
Sure.
It depends on the production company, how much they want to tell the actors. Sometimes, like, typically speaking, like the bigger the game, like the bigger deal a game is, the more secretive and like very locked down they're going to be about what they tell us. Because even though I have to sign NDAs for everything I do, and so, but typically, like with most projects, you'll sign the NDA and then I'll have all the information that I would ever want after that. But a lot of times, games, even after I've signed an NDA, they're very active and very secretive of the information about that game because they have a lot invested in it.
Yeah.
And, so sometimes I will see what the character looks like, and sometimes I won't. Sometimes, like, the bigger the game, like, I don't know what my characters look like. Sometimes I don't even know what the real title of the game is.
Yeah. And
so it'll come out with a different title than I knew it as, and I don't even know I'm in it. That's happened too. So it depends. You know, as an actor, I always want as much information as you're willing to give me because I can use it. But you know, you gotta, if they don't want to tell you anything, you absolutely have to do your job, then that's their prerogative, and you know, you just gotta roll with it. And because you can't really be like asking. They're, depending on production, they're going to be pretty cagey and not want to tell you, which is what they're well within their. But yeah, it just totally depends. So, but I would say about 60% of the time I know what my character is like, and sometimes I don't. Depends. Yeah,
because like knowing how your character looks, I mean, it does help a lot in order to create that character.
Yeah, and there was one project where they wouldn't show me what my character actually looked like, but they showed me pictures of other characters that were similar.
Okay.
An idea without seeing the actual character design for the game. It's different time. It just depends.
Yeah. Now, tell me, like, what's the process, or what are some of the techniques you do in order to prepare and play a character?
That also depends, because unlike working on stage or working on camera, where you have a lot of time to prepare, especially on stage, you have weeks of preparation.
Yeah.
And on camera, I mean, most of the time you would have the full script ahead of time to read. So at least you would know the entire story, everything that your character is going to say and do. Like, you would know that ahead of time, and so you could prepare. That's usually not how it goes in voice acting. So, and only since the start of everybody having to record at home because of COVID, it wasn't until then that we started getting scripts ahead of time, because they would have to send the scripts to us that we're going to be recording for that session so that we could have them on our end. And that was the first time I think I'd ever gotten like the script for, at least for those episodes that we were going to. So in terms of preparation, the way you prepare for a voice acting job versus like an on camera or a theater job is completely different. So let's say I'm going to be doing an anime series. If the anime is already out subbed, I will watch all of it, or as much as I can before I have to go record. And I always try to watch the episodes that I know I'm going to be recording that day right before, so that I know in my head what the context of everything is, what the bigger picture is in the story, you know, how my character's fitting into all of that, blah, 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 blah. So I try to watch whatever, if whatever I'm going to be recording is available to watch, I will do that. But beyond that, like, video games are the hardest to prepare for, because you essentially have very little information.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know anything. Sometimes, like, let's say you audition for more than one character for the game and they tell you booked it, they might not tell you which character you booked. So I've gone into game sessions not even knowing which character that I auditioned for I got. So preparation's hard. So with a video game where I'm going completely blank, the best I can do is, if that's a pre-existing franchise and there are lots of other games that are already out, I'll go on YouTube and watch cutscenes or gameplay just to get an idea of like, what's the vibe of this franchise I don't know already. So I'll do that. And then preparation for me for something like that is all about physical preparation. So because I don't know what I'm going to be asked to do vocally, right? So if I know I'm going in to record a couple episodes of an anime that I've been working on for months, and I know that character, and I know exactly, you know, what's required of me vocally to play the character.
Yeah.
But if I'm going into a game session, I don't know what I'm going to do sometimes. So I want to make sure my voice is as prepared for anything as it possibly can be. Yeah. So really extensive warm-ups and like vocal stuff to make sure I'm as good as I can be in that regard. Make sure I've gotten sleep, make sure I'm really, really well hydrated, like all that kind of stuff. So that way, whatever they end up throwing at me in that session that I'm going in totally unprepared because I can't prepare, I'm ready to roll as best as I can with whatever gets thrown at me. Because seriously, sometimes you have no clue what they're going to ask you for. You've got to be ready for anything. Yeah. Anything. And I mean anything.
Now, for video games, you were involved in Fire Emblem Heroes, Genshin Impact, and Monster Hunter Risa. Tell me about your characters for those games, and also, like, how was the process for you to create those characters?
So, in every single one of the ones you just mentioned, I didn't originate that character. So those were all
already
them. So Fire Emblem and Monster Hunter, those are Japanese games. So those characters had already been like originated by the Japanese actors. Genshin is a Chinese game. So that character had already been originated by the Chinese actor. So it's not with that kind of thing, it's not like I'm developing a character that I'm the very first person to ever play. It's a little bit different when you're dubbing, because the animation is already there. Everything's there. I'm just putting my interpretation of the character in English, right? So it's a little bit different than developing a character, like a brand new character for a TV show or a movie or stage. So for this, it's less about, and because I can't really prepare all that much for it, you know, when you're dubbing, because all of these projects that you mentioned, those are all video game dubs. That's one of the things about dubbing is it's incredibly restrictive, limited form of acting, because there are very few choices that you, as the dubbing actor coming in, have an opportunity to make. I don't get to very many acting choices because the animation dictates to me what it's going to be. And not only the animation of like what the character is physically doing, how they're standing, how they're moving, like that. Also just the mouth flaps, because we're chained to the flaps. We have to make that work no matter what. So you can't really, you don't really have a lot of freedom and flexibility to do your own thing with a character, because everything already been set in stone. So it's really about molding your take on the character to the stuff that's already there, because we can't change any of that. That's done, right? So it's more about how do I want to mold my interpretation of the character to fit what's already there. That's sort of, I think, a better way to think about it than like developing a character, because I don't have a character to develop. They're already there. They're already developed. So that's a big difference between on camera or stage acting and dubbing in particular. Dubbing specifically, because if I'm doing a video game or I'm doing an original animated series, like that's a Western, you know, original American show, I would be originating that character, and I would be the one shaping and molding that character along with the director, you know, what we all want it to be. And so that would happen in non-dubbing original animation video games. But that's just a big difference between like dubbing and creating something new that doesn't already exist yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is, I mean, such an amazing and interesting process, right? That, I mean, the whole like the whole dubbing, that for some people would say would be that you just switch it to a language and that's it, but it takes like a whole new level here. I mean, from what you just mentioned though,
it's a huge process to create dubs, from start to finish, because long before an actor ever even steps in front of a microphone, the script has to be localized, because especially with like going from a language, Japanese to English, which are languages that could not be more different.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like the structure of like an English sentence and a Japanese sentence saying the same thing, completely different. Completely different. So if we were just like throwing in the direct translations of everything, first of all, it wouldn't fit the flaps, and it would be really strange to an English speaking audience's ear. It's really weird. So the scripts have to be adapted to fit the animation, and also to like naturalize the way it sounds, right? Because it needs to sound natural to whatever, like the French dub needs to sound natural to French speakers' ears, right? The Portuguese dub needs to sound natural to Portuguese speakers' ears, right? So that's the localization process, and that all happens long before, you know, the actors ever start recording. And then it's a slow process. It's a very slow process, because not only getting the sync as close as possible, but getting the performance right as well with all of that. It's very time. That's why it takes a long time. It takes a long time.
Totally. Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
That's badass, by the way. That's really cool. Wow. Now, if you could do the voiceover for any video game right now, which one you would choose?
I would be more than happy to do anything in the Star Wars universe, in
Cool.
Lord of the Rings universe. I think it'd be really cool to be in a game within the Witcher franchise.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Cool.
Any of those, I would love to be and do whatever. I don't even care what. Like, I would do whatever on any of those kinds of projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be cool. And you know what? I'm super sure that eventually it's gonna happen. I mean, I'm super sure that eventually you will give us. I mean, we will notice your voice immediately. Like, wait a minute, I know this person. So
that'd be cool.
So cool.
I take it.
Yeah. Now we can also hear your voice on shows like Sword Art Online, Kakeguri. Yeah, there you go. Gundam Build RE, Rise Kyoku Surui, The Regular at Magic High School, Cells at Work, VV86, Welcome to Demon School, and The Honor at Magic School. Tell me, what are some of the highlight moments that you had during those projects?
Oh, well, that's a lot. Let me think. Well, I would say some of the highlights. Well, of those projects, I've spent the most time working on Sword Art Online. That was a really tough season. I was a really tough character.
Yeah.
And that I worked really hard. Worked really hard on that. Highlights from that. Just getting to be like the villain in, a Sword Art Online season is pretty cool. And getting to be like the first female, big baddie, like big boss villain that felt really special to me too. And she's a cool character, so that was definitely a highlight. Cells at Work is one of my favorite shows that I've ever worked on. I loved that show. I had watched it, actually, the first season of that show. I watched it. I got the audition like 2 days after I finished it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that we were going to dub it in LA. And so I was so excited when I got the audition because I loved the show. Like, I absolutely loved the show. And of course, anytime you get an audition for something that you already are familiar with and you already love, it gets emotionally heavy because you want it so bad.
Yeah.
And that was one of the times where I got lucky and actually did get hired to work on it. So much fun. Yeah, that was one of the few times recording anime that I ever got to improvise because, with anime, I tell people, like, dubbing is the surgery of acting because it is all about, like, intense precision down to, like, fractions of a second. So it's all about precision in the same way that surgery is all about precision. So improvising is just not a thing that's gonna happen because everything's got to be so down to the frame.
Yeah.
And with improvising, you just can't do that. However, if you've got scenes where your character's mouth is not seen and they're talking and doing all this stuff, that may or may not get written in the script. And in this case, in the first season of Cells at Work, my character gets into a massive brawl with another character, like a Looney Tunes style, like cloud of smoke,
Yeah.
arms and legs flying out, which is, and we got to the point where we were going to record that and the director was like, yeah, we don't have anything written for this, and this is like a 45-second loop, which 45 seconds sound like a lot of time, but when you're having to record something continuously off the top of your head, 45 seconds is a long time. And so they were like, just go for it, just do whatever, like, we trust you. And so I did, and by the end of it, I was so exhausted. I was like getting lightheaded. I was just going so crazy. And I looked over, because this is when we still did things in person. I looked over and saw them on the other side of the glass, like heaved over, laughing so hard. And that is the best feeling ever, because, you know, when you're working on stage, which had been all my experience prior to doing this, one of the joys of being a stage actor is getting immediate feedback from the audience, right? Like if something's funny and it's working, because they're laughing, or if something's like, you know, you can hear the audience's reaction, because it's, you know, it's a living thing out there. Yeah, that's gone when you're in the booth, right? Like you don't get that immediate audience feedback, because you know when something's working and when something's not working on stage immediately. You know immediately. In the booth, it's a little bit trickier, and especially when you can't see the director and the engineer, you don't see what's happening to people physically based on your performance, and so you feel kind of like you really are in a vacuum. That's a hard thing about voice acting compared to working on stage for me. But getting to see that immediate reaction of the people who were watching and listening to you is so rewarding. Nothing makes me feel better than like doing a take and glancing over, seeing them laughing on the other side of the glass. Like best feeling. Because I don't work on stage anymore, so I don't get that wonderful audience feedback. So I settle for engineer and director laughter.
That's so amazing. Wow. And what do you like the most about doing voiceover?
I like the challenge of it. Particularly with dubbing. Dubbing is really hard. Dubbing's a very hard thing to do. And the people who are incredibly good at it are just like, it's such a tough skill. Yeah. And I think that's what keeps me coming back to it, because, you know, dubbing anime in particular is like, it's one of the lowest jobs in the industry while also being an artist. And so, you know, a lot of people want to get away from doing it as quickly as they can, because, you know, you can make a lot more money doing other things. But for me, I like the challenge of it. I think it's one of the hardest things I've ever done as an actor. And that's what keeps me coming back, is trying, just like, I want to get better. And because it's never boring. Like it's always a challenge. Every session, every dubbing session you have, like it's that's the thing that I like about it. It's a challenge, and it keeps me coming back, because it kicks my ass and I keep coming back because I want to get better. So that's something I like. I like the flexibility of it, and I like being able to play a huge range of characters of all different ages. I like being able to sometimes play kids, play animals, play robots. That's the cool thing about it. I love being in shows and stuff with my friends in real life, because a lot of my friends are voice actors, and getting to, you know, play like my friend's mom or my friend's, you know, sister or something like that. Cool. That never gets old, ever.
That's so amazing. And if you could describe your career at the moment on a movie, TV show, or even a video game, why not? What would be the title for it?
Like how I feel about my career at the moment? We'll see. We'll see. That's what I would call it.
Okay. And would it be a movie or a TV show or video game?
Movie.
Fair enough. And would you go for a trilogy or just one and that's it?
Ooh. You know what? Let's sign a contract for 3.
There you go. All right. Fair enough.
Let's milk it.
Yeah. Just make sure that the last one you divided it into movies, so we will have like 4.
Yeah. We'll do a 3-parter for the 3rd installment of the trilogy. Milk it like every last drop.
Yeah. Then one day we'll have like 8 movies or 9 movies for the same. We'll see.
Why not? I mean, if I keep doing interesting things, why not?
Totally. And what can we expect from Maureen in the future?
I don't know. That's why I said we'll. Hopefully, well, I mean, of the stuff that is, sorry, there's trash being picked up outside my window. Okay. Lovely for all of us. Wow, that's distracting. So what what was my thought in my brain just now? Oh, so of stuff that is done but that I can't talk about yet. Yeah, there's some stuff coming in the next, hopefully 6 months. That will be very exciting. If anyone is interested, follow on the social media places, because I'll be announcing it. So yeah, there's some very, very cool stuff coming that I feel like I've been waiting forever, and it's still gonna be a little while. But yeah, there's some really cool stuff coming. And then beyond that, who knows? I mean, hopefully I'll just keep working. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about, you know, this job, or most, you know, creative jobs where you're self-employed, is you have no idea
Oh yeah.
what's coming. I mean, you could be in for 2 years of real rough times, or you could be in for like a roller coaster, you know, of work. Like, it's completely unpredictable. So that's why I say, like, hopefully more work. I guess yeah, because that's hard. That's one of the hard things about being an actor, is that in many ways your career's not in your own hands. You do all that you can for yourself, and you hustle out there and you try to do whatever you can, but at the end of the day, it's not your decision. So we're all at the mercy of the powers that be, and just, you know, trying to get whatever work we can is really the name of the game.
Yeah. And my last question, an easy one: any show or movie that you could recommend for the weekend?
Oh, well, it's Halloween, so it feels like it needs to be seasonally appropriate. I'm gonna recommend What We Do in the Shadows as my TV show, if you want my recommendation for this weekend for Halloween. What We Do in the Shadows, if you're not familiar, it's a vampire comedy. It's streaming on, so if you've got Hulu, check it out. I highly recommend. It's very, very fun, and it's perfect for this weekend because it's vampires.
Fair enough. Then we got a show. Then we got something to watch this weekend. Perfect. Well, I mean, what can I say? I mean, your career is so incredible. The fact that you have been involved in so many anime projects here and there, video games too. I mean, I can't wait to see. And I'm super sure that we will hear your voice in a lot more epic stuff here and there. And I'm super sure of that. Yeah, I'm super sure. And you know what? If somebody would tell me, if somebody would ask me what do I think about your career, I would say this.
Glad somebody thinks so.
Your career is awesome. Keep doing what you do, because you're killing it. It is really amazing. I mean, at the end of the day, you were a stage actress and then you moved to voice acting, and that is really amazing. And that is something that you deserve, like, a lot of shout outs and a lot of epicness, because what you do, it's not easy at all. And the fact that like all the dubbing process and all that you've been through, you still manage to give your best performance every day. That is super amazing. And also, so thank you super so much for doing for what you do. Keep rocking, basically. And also, I want to thank those for watching. If you're watching this later on YouTube or listening this later on the podcast, make sure that you're following Maureen in all over social media. Normally, what I would say is for you to put pause, to leave a like and subscribe super quick. It helps me a lot. And then hydrate, and then go follow Maureen, leave a million likes, share all her content, spread the word that we have this talented, amazing voice actress here, and then finish watching the video. And again, Maureen, thank you so much. Before I send you off, I need to send you off properly in a very epic way. So.
I would love to hear that, but it's a confidence boost.
Yeah, I mean, you deserve this and a lot more epic things. Keep having an amazing rest of the day, an amazing weekend, an amazing upcoming week, and nothing but amazing stuff, because you deserve it. And I'll see you in the next.
Thank you. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Have a good one, okay?
Time.
Bye.